Beautiful people, this is our first sales training of 2014. I've had this idea that I've been grinding around for, and where I plan to go with it, I'm not going to. Now, in fairness to my own psyche, because I fought this through so many times, I am going to touch base on it. But I'm going to take a different path, because as I looked at it and pondered, I feel right about going a different path with it right now. But where I was going originally was to run down the rabbit hole of how do you think? Do you think in generic or do you think in art? When it snows outside, when it is ice outside, what do you see? Do you see snow or do you see white crystal water? They're the exact same thing, but they're so different. They just are. You walk outside and you see snow. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Snow, snow, just look at the snow. Come out, come out, come out in the snow. Love that poem. Fun, it's snow, yay. But tell me the imagery you have when you hear white crystal water. Ah, that's beautiful. That's artistic. That's ethereal. You have stepped into a land of fantasy. You've crossed through the wardrobe. You're in Narnia. In the land of humans, you are not even in the land of snow. You are in the land of white crystal water. There's a beauty and an imagery to that. How do you think? Do you think artistically? Do you think poetically? Do you see things at their absolute most magical and poetic verse? Or do you just see them as they are? Here's why I'm not running down that one too much. I don't want to sound too preachy. And I also have to realize the fact that there's a lot of people you're going to work with that want to work with somebody that sees things the way they are. I don't give a art, just a silver-tongued devil. I want to hear our things. And there's also a huge number of people that when you say white crystal water, don't get the imagery. White crystal, what the hell, what's white crystal water? And you don't want to confuse them either. So here is where I'm going with this. Influences. Influences. Yes, I'm going to misspell. Please email or call me to tell me the correct way to spell it. But influences. You're influenced. I'm going to deal with one of the biggest ever. Some of us are more severe with this than others. That is perfectly good. But I'm going to deal with the most generic for now. Accents. If I misspell that, that's okay as well. How many of you have ever hung out with somebody with a strong accent? If you're hanging out in the United States and somebody from England comes over, within hours, even if it's just play, even if it's just fun, even if it's just see if you can do it, you start trying to talk a little. And if you go and live in Australia for a few months, when you get back, you're going to have a little bit of a clip to your talk, eh? If you are from New York, if it got in deep, usually you find yourself fighting a few years later if you move to Texas to still have a Yankee accent. And that was probably more Aussie. I suck at accents, but that's okay. We're going to have fun. It changes. You're influenced. At some level, it happens almost automatically. But go live in Georgia, and you're going to start to talk a little softer, a little bit gentler, sweetie. And you'll pick up the little idioms. You'll say, oh, sweetie, oh, sugar, oh, honey pie. Oh, bless your heart. Because it's the way they talk there. You are influenced by that culture. I use that one because it's very simple. Here's another one. You will write based on, or in the style of whatever you've been reading. You will verbally communicate. Hearing. You will verbally communicate in the style of whatever you've been hearing. You will write based on the style of whatever you have been reading. And you know it's true. Even if all you ever wrote was a paper in 9th grade, you wrote in the style of the facts you read. Go back and dig out that old paper that you got a C+ on and you were so glad because you basically just rewrote the World Book Encyclopedia, and tell me if the verbiage fits you. You'll know it's yours because there's a little bit of you that gets in there, but it's going to be you, and you're going to notice it writing in that scientific way. If you went through college and got a degree, go look at some of the different papers. Look at the paper you wrote for your sophomore year English class and the diction and style of it. Then go look at the paper you wrote for your junior year history class, and then go look at the paper you wrote for your senior year business class, whatever it was. Notice the different technique. You will have written each of them in the style of what you were reading accordingly. Do you want to write in the style of white crystal waters? Read poetry. Read a lot of poetry. Do you want to write in the prose, non-poet writing, style of white crystal waters? High-end authors. The guys I don't personally like. Go read Hemingway. Go read the men that knew how to turn prose into poetry. They're beyond me. The truly great ones are geniuses that had a gift. I'm not looking for you to write a novel. I'm telling you, if you want to write in their style, if you want to get as close as you can, that's who you have to read. Kerouac, whatever, he's one of them real famous for that stuff as well. Tons of them. If you want to write in a high energy, high powered, snow, just look at the snow. Read sports books. Get John Madden. Get whatever. If you want to communicate and you want to be eloquent and you need to be seen as a great public speaker and a person that can communicate emotion as well, get some great TV ministers. I first learned how to sell and I first learned how to speak by watching Jimmy Swaggart on television. I don't like Jimmy Swaggart. If you do, my apologies. I'm not trying to insult you. I have a huge problem with his theology. I always did. I didn't like his style. I didn't like how he did it, but I recognized genius. I did it by watching, the Reverend Jesse Jackson on television. I watched the TV preachers. It was back in the 80s where it's what you could get. But I learned from them how to communicate and how to communicate not just thought but emotion and the power that emotion can put forth versus thought, and how you can non-verbally communicate through a camera. And those of you watching going, oh, you still stink at it? To you. Sorry, I thought that was funny. But to what level I am good at it, these were my first influences. And you continue to path on. Here's where I'm going to get slightly more complicated. And let me erase for a second. And by the way, if I do a good job of passing this along, somebody give me an attaboy, because I'm real worried I'm going to be able to connect these lines like I need to. You communicate based on this. Your accents, your writing, your verbiage, even your non-verbal is influenced. Whether you want it to be or not, it is influenced by what you're taking in. You don't know why Most people are happy, non-stressed, even if you think you're average. They sell average, they achieve average, they do average, they communicate average, and they're perfectly happy doing average because their communication is the same thing everybody else hears. If your input is your local area, and it's the same TV shows everybody watches nationally, it's the same newspaper everybody reads nationally, and your only real variation is your local news, your input is so perfectly average that it's almost impossible for you to not have average results. If you want to be above average, you have to take in the average and more. You've got to read periodicals, you've got to read novels, you've got to read poetry, you have to hang out with others, you have to study other speaking, you've got to stretch it out. It is easy to get the average influences. You don't even need the same number of hours as other people, just a little pittance, but you have to do more. But here is what I'm going to challenge you with. Who do you want to reach? And if you want to reach them, get their same influences. If you want to sell half-ton pickups to loggers, don't go hang out at a country club. If you want to sell prescription medicine to doctors, getting membership at a country club, hang out at local hospitals, go take classes from medical professionals, and go to seminars from medical professionals and read medical journals. Get the same influences that set those doctors. You want to influence lawyers. You want to sell to them. Get their same influences. If you want to get in with the highest end people at the biggest, best end country club, join the country club. And here's the funny thing. Everybody thinks you do that because, oh, that's where I meet them. Yes, all that matters. Yes, that networking matters. But nobody thinks about the fact that it's having the same influences. You will start to speak in diction they relate to. You will start to use idioms that they subconsciously pick up on, and you only can give them out. Do you know how friggin' hard it is to consciously do an accent? You know why we think Frank Caliendo is a comedic genius? His jokes are good sometimes, but it's basically, John, that was my best Frank Caliendo doing John Madden. We know how hard that is. We're impressed by it. And yet our accent changes at a subconscious level. It is only at that level that you pick up the correct, and I'm going to use the word again, idioms, of nonverbal, of diction, of way of standing, of way of dressing, of way of all those things, that you are real to the people you want to reach before you ever get in the door. And they see it and they think of you accordingly long before it ever comes. Why? Because that is the presence you put out there. Now, for any of you young people watching, here's my advice to you. It is much easier to sell down than it is to sell up. It is much easier to be the guy that dances with lawyers and doctors and professors and Forbes 500 people and engineers and sell to the logger than it is to be the guy that hangs out with the logger and sells to the engineers and the lawyers and the doctors and the Forbes 500 people. So if you have to default, start high. However, If you sell farm equipment, hang out with farmers. Unless your audience is weekend hobby farmers, which are wealthy doctors, lawyers, engineers, and such. Again, who do you want to reach? And this is how you reach them. You have to see what they're seeing. You have to read what they're reading. You have to live the way they're living. And you will pick it up, even if you don't mean to. Hope this meant as much to you as it did to me. I find this very important and sometimes difficult, but you want an easy way to get in? I'm dead serious, this is easy. Let me try to put it one last way in hopes I can drive this nail into the coffin. The best way to learn German is go live for 3 months in Germany. I don't care if you don't know a word. If you go wanting to know German and you go live there for 3 months, you are fluent in German when you come home. Just going to happen. Who do you want to reach? Where do you want to expand? Where do you want to do bigger? What do you want to do better? What market do you want to get into? Get their influences. I love you. Hope this helped. Have a great day.